Welcome to this exciting tutorial on building with the Avada theme. It's now October 2016 and overwhelmed that the new Avada Theme 5.0 is finally here. I'm going to take you through step by step how to use and benefit from the Avada theme, get you to think how it thinks one step at a time, no coding, using my proven production techniques. Now, what's nice about my training is I involve you in the thinking process. I get you to think the way the software thinks, hence think, learn, earn. So I'm here to help you every step of the way. I don't produce long-winded videos. Each video is short, sweet, to the point, but it gets you up and running in a quick manner. So if you go to the Avada Theme website, you'll see that they have these pre-built templates, which are really great. Now, if you want to build something totally from scratch, I have videos for that as well. But right now, we're going to dissect how to build, how to edit, make changes to it, how to add your own photos to the Avada Theme photography template, which is really exciting, very cool, well designed, etc., etc. So I've installed the photography theme. And if you sign up for my portal, you'll have complete access to the software for demonstration and training purposes only. If you're going to use this for commercial use, then you will have to buy the Avada theme from themeforest.net right now. Okay, so I'm logged in as the admin, and let me share with you some really cool production techniques. I use a lot of free plugins to benefit me from what WordPress doesn't do. One of my favorite plugins is something called Duplicate Post. If you want to install that, I highly suggest you do that to follow along with this tutorial. So I have this selected right here. Now, the thing I like about the duplicate post is it doesn't affect what I built before. So if you're working with a client and they have version 1, version 2, version 3, you don't want to have to use the WordPress version for that because that gets a little tedious. So what we'll do here to get started, I'm going to click right here on Make a New Copy. I'm going to take this one step at a time to share with you how the program thinks. That's going to put us right into our admin section. So we're just going to call this Home version 1. And save that or publish that. Now right now everything's the same, but now I have that other version to go back to if I totally screw this up. Now let me share with you how it thinks and what it expects from you. Now, the Avada theme is the #1 best-selling theme on WordPress, for WordPress on themeforest.net for a reason. It's very intuitive, but there's a lot of little nuances, and it can trip you up if you don't start thinking the way the software thinks. Now, if you're new to 5.0, which just came out recently, you probably haven't seen a copy yet, that the interface is slightly different. They made some great improvements. It loads faster, everything else. So let's dissect this one step at a time. Now, here's just a little production technique for WordPress. I have friends that have worked in WordPress for years, and they don't use this little technique. I want to stay in my backend admin, but I want to see what the front end looks like. So I'm simply going to click Preview Changes. So that's going to show me a preview of the front end. So let me break down for you exactly how the Avada theme works and where the different elements and features are coming from. So here's the front end and the back end. So the back end of the page basically is right here. What you're seeing up here is actually the slideshow, which we'll talk about in more detail in a subsequent video. But right now I want you to get up and running in a quick, simplistic way. So let's go back to our backend admin. Now keep in mind that this is a saved version of a copy of the page that we use with our free plugin that you can get by just going to WordPress and searching for duplicate post. It's great. I use it all the time. It's a time saver. All right, so let's just break this down. So Avada is a drop and drag interface. Now this interface is dramatically different as far as visually different from the older version. So if you have an older version of Avada, I highly suggest you upgrade to the new version. It's faster loading, and once you get used to it with my video help, you'll be on your way. Okay, now if you come down here where it says Portfolio, that portfolio is the information that you're seeing down here. That's what's feeding it, and this is really cool stuff. Now, if you click on here, you'll probably be very confused if you don't have my help or if you don't know anything about the theme. If I click on here, you'll see there are different properties for how the layout is shown in a carousel or a grid. Right now, it's shown with grid with text. So I'm not going to go into every single nuance because that's a complete waste of time. That's what you should use for your practice. I want to share with you how the software thinks, and then in your practice time, spend hours and hours and hours honing your skills. That's how I get good at this. I've been using software for 30 years, almost next year. Okay, how many posts per page? Now you'll see that there's no photos on here, and you might say, well, wait a second here. Let's go to animation. Where's it getting its photos from? Well, the photos are coming from the portfolio section. Let's go back in here to general for a second. So right now you're seeing all the information. So right now, categories, if I leave this blank, it's going to show me all my categories. Now, if I click here, I can actually pick just the categories I wish to see. So if you just wanted to see casual or cultural or mountain, now, why is this important? Because you might have different pages for different clients that you're trying to sell to. So as an example, I have a client years ago that did all kinds of photography, but he was dealing with a client that was very against the whole animal thing, of safari and taking pictures of animals and exploiting animals. So he definitely did not want to show this in his portfolio, but he didn't want to have to redo a website. So what he did, he made up a separate page and sent it to the client. They can actually see his work for this particular portfolio. So that's what that's used for. So let's cancel this for a second. So if I come over here to portfolio, now let me share with you a really cool production technique. I want to keep this window here, but I also want to be portfolio. So how can I do this? I can either right click or control click Macintosh and open this either inside of a new tab or a new window. I'm going to choose a new tab. Again, production technique 101. So these are the different sections here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I come back here to the front, you will see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so that information is coming from right here. So if you didn't want to see those particular portfolio pieces, that's what you use the portfolio section to turn that portfolio on and off. Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. So that's how you can basically insert a portfolio into your piece, into your page. So the page here, what you're seeing is exactly here. So if you say, see where it says capture moments as they happen. Well, that's exactly what you're seeing up front here. Capture moments as they happen. Okay, so this is a simple text file. So if I wanted to make changes to that, the way the interface works, this is for editing the changes, this is for duplicating the changes, this is for a new feature for saving the element, and of course, if I don't want it all together, I can turn around and trash it. So this comes down to working smart. So let's say that this section here, I want to duplicate that because I want to have the same formatting without reinventing the wheel as this, but perhaps I just want to say something totally different. So that would be a case of duplicating that area. So I can come here and duplicate that, hit the edit menu and call it something else. So let's call this my October 2016 recent picks, and I'll fix that in a second. Thank somebody for spell check. Now, if I click right here, I can actually see for SEO purposes, I'm probably going to make this an H1 tag because for SEO, well, I have a complete series of videos that talk into deep, but I just want deep into SEO. So I just want to share with you. So I'm going to hit OK. So it's going to use the same properties as my previous, because I duplicated it. So if I come down here to update, now keep in mind that sometimes depending on the browser that you're using, this is a preview page. It might not update every single time. So what I would suggest you do is once that page is saved, hit preview changes again. So the advantage of using preview changes, it'll keep the back end intact as I view the front end. There's my new change. Now, of course, I probably want to put that in the center, but I didn't. So I just want to share with you where that information is coming from one step at a time. I'm going to close out of this window. I'm going to go back in here, and I'm going to trash that. I just did that for demonstration purposes. I'm just going to click right here and get rid of it. Make a change. Save a change. Good to have to get into. So in our next video, we'll move forward dissecting more of the Avada theme and how it can benefit you and save you time in production techniques. So stay tuned. I think one of the coolest features of modern websites is the slideshow. In this particular case, the sliders are up on top. Everything is very clean. There's very little navigation information. Everything is clicked over here for navigation. So I'm going to share with you how to do this one step at a time in subsequent tutorials. Now, for those of you that are, again, new to the Avada theme, you could probably, because you're not sure where things are, and to read documentation, you might as well just hit yourself with a bologna sandwich. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go back into Edit Page. So again, here's the landscape. We don't need that. That was from the previous video. So I'm going to go back into Edit Page. Now you'll notice that on the Edit Page, and this is where it can get very confusing, that there's nothing here on the top that says Slideshow. So it's like, where is that information coming from? Well, the new Avada Theme 5.0 makes it a little bit more simplistic to understand how to edit and change. We'll talk about this in just 1 second. But basically, out of the older version, if you come down here to the bottom, for sliders, it's using a Fusion slider, and it's using a slider called Home. So the Home slider is based on the home page. You can call your slides whatever you want, but here's what I want to share with you where you can get very confusing. So if I come over here to the left here, now new in version 5, they moved the slider that used to be down here on the bottom left is now here underneath the Avada theme. So it's very important to understand the difference, vocabulary here is important, between slides and sliders. Slides and sliders. The slider is what you attach to that particular page. So notice it says slider is home. Now I have different sliders in here. We're using the home slider for this particular page. So let's go back to that again. So I can hold down the control key, right click, and I'm going to say edit slides. And it's going to open up a new tab. This way I can keep the other page there. So these are the different slides that I have in place. Okay, these are the slides. Okay, so if I click here for edit home, because that is one of the slides that we used on the home page, you will see that it's getting its information, what's called the featured image. So let me break this down for you. Let's go back to this one more time. I'm just going to click here. Since we're on a new tab here, I'm going to click on just Fusion Slider. So again, vocabulary. Let me explain to you the difference between a slider and a slide. The slide, you can have 5, 6, 10, 12 slides, part of a slider. The slider is what gets attached to that particular page. So if I come down here to sliders, you will see that these are my different sliders. My sliders can be set up for different height, width, etc., etc. I can make a new slider from scratch. Again, this is stuff you want to do in your practice time. I'm not going to go into every single nuance. But here's what I want to share with you. Do you see this list of sliders? Sliders, not slides. The slides are the individual slides. So just get a visual snapshot of that. About me, hire, home, location. That's the information you will see if I click down here. See, this list right here is exactly what this list right here is. Okay, so if I click right here, you're not going to see anything other than the properties that was set up for that particular slide, whether you want to have slider effects or handles or the height, the width, etc., you can set that up yourself. Again, we'll go more into detail, but my objective of this particular series is to get you up and running in a reasonable amount of time without wasting your time. So if I was to go to the actual slide itself, the slides itself, this is sliders, I'm going to go back into slides. Okay, so for home slide, again, let's edit that for a second. And that's the slide that was on the home page. So how does the slider know to put that home slide? Is it because of its name? Of course not. I could have called this Ishkabibble Monkey Breath. No offense to people with monkey breath. So this is basically called the home slide, which is part of the home slider. This way it's very simple for me to keep track of things. And here's how it works. If you wanted to make this home slide part of the Fusion slider called Home, you simply click here. If you, in addition to that, wanted to put that into the About Me and the Hire Me and the On Location, then you would click here. So the way that this works, it gets its image from Featured Image. So if I click on Featured Image and I wanted to swap that out for something else, I can go into my media library and I can basically pick my different images. So let's say I wanted to put this as my featured image for the home slider, or this image here, etc., etc. I could do that just by selecting that particular slide. We're not going to do that, but I could do that. And if I wanted to upload a brand new slide, I would do that right from here. Okay, so where it's getting its information from is inside of the slider. So the slider is attached to the slide itself. Does that make sense? So I can align how the text, what kind of image it's going to be. I can make it a YouTube video. I can make it a Vimeo video, a self-hosted video. We'll talk more about that in a subsequent video series, but I just want to get you up and running. Okay, here's the text here. Here's the separator. If there's going to be a separator, I could pick a separator here. I could pick the font size, etc., etc. Now, what's really cool about this from a marketing standpoint is I can put HTML code into here as well. We'll talk more about that in a subsequent video. So I don't want to sell you short here. I just want to get you up and running in a reasonable amount of time. So that's how I can basically affect the slide itself. So if I come down here and I wanted to swap this out, and we're just going to do that just because we can. So we're going to change that to the About Me slider. So I'm going to come up here and update. Now, production technique. If in fact you are going to do this in the real world, perhaps you might want to call this version 1B, 1C, 1D, etc., etc. So it's a little bit of planning ahead will just save you a lot of brain damage. So I'm going to hit OK, update. I'm going to preview the changes. And you'll see that that front end slide is going to look very different than it did before, because I changed the group of slides inside that slider family. So this is using the About Me, which may work for a home page probably better than what was in there originally. But that's totally up to you. Now notice the page is going to be the same. The only thing that has changed is the slide itself, which comes out of the slider family. So I just want to get that vocabulary in your head to make it really simplistic. So let's move forward in our next video. So let's move right along inside the collections page of the photography of Avada Theme, and I'm going to share with you some particulars about how to make changes to this page as well. So if I click right here and I go to collections, it's going to bring up that particular page. Now, similar to what we did before, working smart, we're going to go and make a copy of that. Now I'm going to share with you how we can then relink it to the correct pages later in a subsequent video. But this way we don't have to damage or interfere with the original integrity of the theme, especially for learning purposes. A very cool production technique. So I'm going to come in here and do collections version 1. Again, this basically means your particular version of that page. So I'm going to save the draft. I'm not going to publish, I'll just save that right now. Could have to get into make changes, save changes. Now, a couple of things I want to point out that the Avada Theme, if you want to make a responsive design, something we haven't talked about yet, that the basic template width is set to 100%. If you use percentages, that's going to be responsive depending on the size of the tablet or the phone or the desktop computer. So we'll talk more in detail in subsequent videos. Again, I just want to get you up and running and take it one step at a time. All right, so if we come down here, everything is pretty much the same as what we talked about before. I have the portfolio section, and I can edit which one of those portfolios I want to see. Now, again, if you go to the front page here, and I publish this, preview page, that's going to bring up a brand new window. So I just want to kind of compare the two and share with you the difference here. So if I scroll down to the bottom, here's my collection of photography that I showed for this particular page. And then I have down here, if I scroll down here, I have different testimonials. So if I click here, here's what Ainsley Adams says. Here's what Ernst says. Here's what Robert says, to be frank. Robert Frank, Hey, to be Frank, yeah, he's Frank. I thought he was Robert. Anyway, who's on first? All right, so if I go back into here under Edit Page, you'll see that I have something called Testimonials. Now, I will share with you how to make changes to this, but more importantly, where did this come from? So that basically came under the elements. So if I click down here, let's say that this did not exist. I would click elements, and based on these choices, then I can pick whatever element that I want. In this particular case, I can pick the element of lost password or user login or video, but in this particular case, I'm going to pick testimonials. That's how that particular element was put there. So again, if you're starting out totally from scratch, benefit from the elements by clicking right here based on these choices, because software simply comes down to choices. I'm going to cancel that. So if I click right here, it's working smart. Let's say I want to add new elements. So here's a cool production technique, and this is what I want you to benefit from my experience using the different themes. I'm going to click right here to edit this. Now if I click the other icons, that's going to duplicate that. Very cool production technique here. So let's say that I just started with this first one, and I set this up in such a way that I want to show his avatar, not etc., etc. I want to put his company information in here. What I'm trying to share with you is if in fact you want this to have a certain property and feel and look to it, then go ahead and do that for that first one. Now, rather than reinvent the wheel from that, because again, very important step here. Avada makes it very simple if you know how to use the tools. So if I design this first one in such a way, I'm not going to create a brand new one from scratch. This would make a brand new one from scratch. And then I got to start the whole process over as far as the property settings, as far as the color or the position or the linkage, etc., etc., etc. So what I want to share with you is don't do that. Make your first one and simply duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. So as an example, if I now want to put a new one in here, and we'll hit the edit button there, and we'll just call this this is a girl I knew a long time ago. Now, if you want to put a female avatar in there, we'll just make this slightly different just because we can. We could put our company link, etc., etc., and we'll just put something like, what should we quote, Walt Whitman or something, or put some Nietzsche or Schopenhauer, James Farrell. I'll just put, I cried when I had no shoes until I saw the girl with no feet. Now, what does that have to do with a testimonial? Nothing. I just thought that was really cool to put in there. So if I save that and save the changes, now the only difference in this particular case is we're going to show the avatar. So if I go ahead and publish that and then preview the changes here, now keep in mind again, depending on your browser, that this might be the old version of the changes. So if I refresh that page, let's see if that brought in the new version. Because sometimes it gets stuck inside of your cache. And it looks like it did. So there's the first one, second, third, fourth. Okay, and it says the avatar to let people know that she was a female. Not important that she was or wasn't, etc., etc. So that's how you can make changes to that particular page. So that we're making changes to the collection page using different elements. Now, once again, you get up and running here, I'm going to have a series of videos that will go into more detail, but I just want to make it really simple for you to take an existing theme and make changes to that theme one step at a time. So let's move on to the next page, the next type of properties, and let's have fun with this. Hey, you're not smiling. Why aren't you smiling? Hey, the new Avada Theme is out, 5.0. Woo! So before we go any further, I just want to share with you a very powerful technique. And if you do a Google search, you'll drive yourself insane as to why you can't change things on the Avada theme. So as an example, notice that this particular theme's menu is what's called a flyout menu. And if I click over here, you'll basically see the different navigation system. Now, I have a separate video for actual menu creation. But right now I want to talk about how to solve a problem, and you'll drive yourself absolutely insane if you don't know how to fix it. So as an example, I'm going to go into my dashboard inside of a new tab. So I'm going to click dashboard and click new tab. So I just want to keep this front end here for a second so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, here's the problem. I'm going to go into Avada Theme options. Now, you might assume that the issue that I'm looking for is under menu. And under menu choices, I have main menu, flyout menu, secondary menu, etc., etc. So you might think to yourself, well, let's go to flyout menu and let's see what's causing this menu to fly out. Well, I can change, as an example, if I wanted to change the flyout color to say something very visual, I'll make it yellow and save the changes. So if I come back here and refresh the page, you will see, in fact, that the menu flyout menu color over here has changed to yellow. So is the search option as well. So that's not the issue. The issue is, I'm going to change that back to default. The issue is I don't want to have that type of menu. Okay, so how can I change that? Again, it's not under menu. And if I physically go to menu section here under WordPress menus, that's not going to solve the problem either. The answer is very simple under header, what's called header content. So what Avada does to their wise wisdom layout is it lets you pick different types of headers. So as an example, this is the header that's set up for this particular theme. What's really cool about this is you can then take your menus and basically make any type of experience for your viewer. So as an example, I'm going to pick this as my header. I'm going to save the changes. And if I come back here to save this, to refresh the page, you'll notice that this particular menu gets replaced with my new menu. Now, if in fact you want to go this route, that's totally up to you, but it just I think it's very clean. But see, some people could get confused because they don't know what a flyout menu is. I'm talking about the end user. That's something you would see on a mobile device, but most people kind of get a little confused. So you may want to keep your site clean by having the flyout menu, which is a nice feature, but it's not very intuitive to the user. So it really depends on what you're doing. So this has basically your info, your phone number. So let's go back here again and let's pick this option. So this will show you the current option that you have selected and save the changes. Now keep in mind, anything you do in the theme option is a site-wide change unless you override that with local settings for that particular page. Okay, so this is a setting here. So again, depending on how you want to set this up, I'm going to go back to the default theme option. In this particular case was here. So I'm going to select that. Hit save changes, and if I go back here, everything is right with the universe. So again, the reason I wanted to do a simple little short video on this, because this will drive you insane if you don't know how to fix this. And if you do a Google search, or even if you do a search on the Avada theme, it's not very clear how to do this because you could do it anyway. I just wanted to share that with you. So that's how I can change my different menu, what's called heading, based on those choices inside of global options, inside of Avada theme. Talk to you soon. So I really do hope that these short little videos will get you to become more intuitive and start thinking how the Avada theme works. Now, of course, I have complete in-depth more benefits and features of my premium courses. These are free courses. Now, let's be honest with each other, okay? You don't work for free. I don't work for free. So I don't mind sharing my knowledge with you for free, but I assume that my knowledge will help you earn money. So if you're serious about what you do and you're really serious about making a living at this, please support me by signing up for my premium courses, which are much more in-depth and upgradable, etc., etc. Anyway, enough of that. All right, let's go and move forward. And right now we're in the location page. Now, here's what I want to share with you. This location page, of course, looks a little different because the original theme that was set up had the whole world, which is part of your WordPress installation. Well, of course, I don't want that, so I'm going to go under Dashboard, and I'm simply going to get rid of my post, which is the whole world post, and of course that ships with WordPress. So you'd have to take that away if in fact you don't want to use that. So I'm just going to click right here and throw that in the trash. So now if I go back to the page, you will see that it looks exactly how it should look from the Avada Theme website. So if I go back here, go back to on location, you'll see that now it looks exactly the same. Now again, let's go and edit the page. Yeah, I can make a copy of the page, but this is really pretty simplistic, so we can just go share with you how to affect and change this particular page. So I'm going to edit page. And if you scroll down here for a second, I just want to point something out to you. Okay, if you want to change existing sliders in new version 5, before you had to go up here to the menu, now you can basically edit the slider or remove the slider altogether. So I can edit the slider or edit the slides. I understand the difference from a previous video. The slider is basically the container for the slides. The slider is what gets applied to the page. So as an example, whatever that slider location is would be down here on the bottom under pages. So under pages slider, and you'll see that I have the on location page selected. Again, depending on where you want to position this, below or above. Now the default means that it comes from the theme options, from the Avada theme options. So I just want to point something out to you. Anything under here is global, but you can override that locally, similar to how CSS works. So you have global CSS and local CSS. So basically, the global affects the whole entire site, but then you can make changes locally. All right, so now the blog post is similar to the portfolio that we talked about in previous videos. So it works identical. So whatever you put in your blog, you can choose to bring that up in a blog post. And the layouts can be so many per page, so many per categories, etc., etc. You choose not to show categories. Again, do this in your practice time, but I just want to point out to you where that information is coming from. The information is coming from your post. The posts have to be a blog. Now, what's of importance here in this particular case is if I want to subscribe to something. Now, notice it says contact form. So if I click right here, this is simply a contact text block. So in here I have the shortcode for what's called the Context 7, which is a free plugin that ships with the Avada theme. It's one of the best contact forms out there. You can style it any way you choose. Let me share with you. So if you get a visual snapshot of this, it's basically saying contact form 7, 633, subscribe, whatever you want to call that. Now, where's that information coming from? Well, if we come over here to the left, under contact, I'm going to hold down the control key, Macintosh, or right click for Windows, and I'm going to go into contact forms. So you can have different types of contact forms styled differently depending on what you want to do. So as an example, this was called subscribe. So if I come up here and you wanted to make changes to that, that's it right here. Now, very important step here. I haven't changed any of the mail settings, but they've changed things in the past 2 years that if you use a Google or Yahoo account, and unless it's up to snuff with the current SEO and spam protection, you may have to use a web address that goes to your particular domain name. So you can get error messages when sending out mass emails to your clients or your prospective buyers if you use a Gmail account or other non-related web accounts. So I have a separate video that explains this in detail. But basically what's happening here is here's my form setup, and anytime you create a contact form, it puts the shortcode right here. So whatever settings or whatever objects that you have set up in here, messages like, hey, you basically contacted us successfully, that information comes right from here. Now again, I have a very in-depth video series on setting up a contact form from scratch, but I just want to share with you that I can make changes to it right from here and where it's coming from. So this is basically set up with CSS. CSS is a whole nother subject we'll go into, but I just want to share with you where that's coming from. So every time you make a form, that information is right here. So if I close this window and I come back here for a second, that's where this information right here came from. So if I didn't have the information in there, I would just copy and paste just like that. I'm going to cancel out of that. So I just want to share with you that's where the information is coming from. Okay, so the information that you see here is identical to how the site is going to visually behave based on your properties of that particular theme. So in our next video, we'll finish out the photography website. Now again, I just want to share with you that I have much more in-depth videos, but the purpose of these free YouTube videos is to kind of get you up and running and get a taste and feel on how the Avada theme works and can work for you. Talk to you soon. So once again, let's finish up with this final page of this particular template theme using the Avada theme 5.0. So again, this is set up under different slides. So if I come back here under edit page, now if you want to make a different change to this, I would suggest go into copy and make yourself a different change that we did in the very first video. We called it version 1. So we would call this Hire Me version 1, version 2, version 3. I just want to point that out to you. I'm into the edit page. So let's examine again where that particular slider is coming from, kind of as a little refresher here. So if I come down here to my page slider, you'll see that I'm using the Hire Me slider, which is basically the slider, and inside that slider are the slides. I keep repeating that, but it's very important. I can't assume that you watch these videos in sequence. So that's just a little kind of, for instance, or a reminder of where that information is coming from. Now, what's really cool about working with the Avada theme, again, I'm just going to go to preview. Let's go to preview changes, so I'll get a separate window that pops up. And again, let's just have a little visual snapshot of what this page looks like. So it's still using that same flyout header from before. All the pages are set up like that by default. And then I have a different form here. So the form basically goes down into collection. The collection brings up portfolio, and then I'm followed with my footer. So if I come down here for a second, so looking beautiful, yada, 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 here's my element, and here's my contact form. Now, you'll wonder why the contact form is actually in the center. A little bit of trickery here. I didn't have to do any kind of advanced CSS. What I did here, or what the people who built the theme did, is they simply made a series of columns and then put the information in the center. So let's say as an example, and that's what makes this theme so very powerful, let's say you wanted to kind of not make it as wide. So what I can do here is I can click here and I can make this 1/3 or 2/5 or whatever I want to make this. Now, keep in mind, unless you slept through 4th grade math class, you have to understand basic fractions. So if I was to make this 1/3, therefore, I make this 1/3. So if I make this 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3, then I would basically put that right in the center. Okay, does that make sense? So this is something called columns, and we'll go more into that in detail, but I just want you to understand how it thinks. So if I save those changes, let's see if I can just update the page here. You'll see that it's a little thinner in the middle because I'm dealing with 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. So this is still saving up here on the left. So if I scroll down, you'll see that that's a little thinner. I kind of like that. I don't think it needs to be that wide. Now, how is this coming in? Why does this look the way it does? Well, again, this is coming from my contact form from my previous video. So this is contact form 7. So if I come over here to contact and I pick contact forms, I'm just going to right click or control click Macintosh. Then you can see that this is contact form 7. So contact form 7, I have different IDs for the shortcode as well. And if you go into there, you will see how this was set up. It's really pretty simple. Okay. Now, here's something I want to point out to you. It comes down to working smart. Part of the reason you can then duplicate, so let's say you spent a good half hour getting a form to look exactly the right way and minus some other options. So as an example, maybe on one form you have, how did you hear about us? But on another form, you simply just want the person's first name and last name for an email address, but you don't want to build that from scratch, so that's why you would duplicate that particular form. So when you duplicate that form is going to have different IDs and different identifiers and different titles to basically know where that's positioned at. So that's where that comes into place. And if I click here, keep in touch, the way that this is set up, those fields are required. So anything that you put an asterisk next to will show you that that particular field needs to be filled in. So that's what this here means. So if you don't want your subject, if you want your subject to basically be filled in, then you would have to have an asterisk next to it, similar to this. So it's really pretty straightforward. So that should kind of get you up and running on how to work with the photography theme. And again, I have more in-depth videos when you sign up on themebuilding.studio. If you get into the studio, I will share with you, you have complete access. So if you haven't bought the Avada theme yet, and you're kind of just wondering how it works and how it thinks, you can log on to my site for free and get a free trial with the Avada theme already installed. Now again, you're not using it for commercial purposes. So if you need to use this for commercial purposes, you do need to buy a physical license from themeforest.net. That's the only place to buy the Avada theme, and I think right now it's $60 US, which is, I just want to share something with you. I've been teaching software since 1987. 1989-90, I started a school here in New York City. And I used to have students that were basically so full of themselves to say, oh, I got a copy of PageMaker. I got a copy of Flash. It's like, what do you mean you got a copy? Oh, my friend gave me a copy. I just looked at them and wanted to ream them a new one. I says, look, the people that build software put a lot of time and effort. They have families and college and bills to pay, just like you and I. So by stealing their software is not a good idea. So take this one step at a time and take this seriously. If you need to use the Avada theme for commercial purposes, please buy a license. The $60 is a drop in the bucket. Now you say, well, $60 is a lot of money. Well, the client's paying for that, so build it into the price. If you're going to charge your client $2,500 to build a website, make it $25.99 so you can have them buy the Avada theme. Talk to you soon. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Robert Farrell. If there's a better, faster way to do things, you've come to the right place. Carpe Diem 2016.